Jonathan Siemens, Director of Marketing and Communications at Chiscom, on behalf of AtGames.
So we're here with the Legends Ultimate Cab at CES 2020 Showstoppers, talking about the journey since launching this last year.
So, I mean, you might have seen us at E3, where we introduced the ALU, but we really wanted to bring the world's first connected arcade to the market. And that's what this Legends Ultimate is. So it's a two-player, full-size arcade standing 66 inches with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, plus 350 built-in games.
So, outside of that, it seems like it's more than just an all-in-one, cab with like a bunch of different arcade games. You mentioned that it's a connected device. Can you talk about how that differentiates it from a lot of the other cabinets on the market right now?
So with the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, we're able to offer firmware updates, introduce new features to the arcade without actually having to changing the physical unit. We also have ArcadeNet and BYOG, which allows you to access your Steam library, your Epic library, your Blizzard library, and play the games on the arcade, as well as ArcadeNet offers ways to add additional games to the unit.
Wait, so is this thing a PC?
It's an arcade machine. It's the Legends Ultimate arcade machine.
But you said I could run Steam and Epic Game Store on it.
You definitely can run Steam, and that's through our proprietary hardware and software.
I feel like we're arguing about form and function here.
You might be right, but it's definitely an arcade machine that might run on Windows software.
And Greg and I had a chance to get on there before we did this interview. We were playing Street Fighter 4. Yeah. Can you talk about the various input devices that you're going to offer, like outside of just what's on the cabinet itself? How will players be able to play games that are maybe on Epic Game Store? Like what kind of gamepads would be supported?
So you can add actually 4-player functionality using different controllers via USB. It can be your Xbox controller, it can be your PS4 controller. You can play locally and stream locally using BYOG from your PC. You can stream the games from, like you said, Epic, Origin, Steam, using our optimized servers. And of course, you can use all the arcade controls. And then you can also use the ArcadeNet to play different games. We do have HDMI and USB ports, which allow you to access our Blast dongles and our flashback consoles to play even more games. And then the possibilities are endless with the ALU.
When it comes to USB ports, can you add a keyboard and mouse to this?
You definitely can, and a lot of people use the keyboard and mouse to sign into their Steam account and to access some of the menus.
Yeah, because I noticed that some of the menus are kind of PC inspired, so it seems like having a mouse there might help.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of having the USB ports, is that you're able to do that, and then you're not using the trackball and the A button to input all the information.
What do you think's going on right now where so many of these retro cabs are popping off? Is it that there's like a generation of kids who grew up with arcades that are now having nostalgia because we don't really have arcades in the US in like a big way right now? Like, why do you think that we've seen such a resurgence in this product category?
I think you touched on it. I remember going to the grocery store or the mall and being able to play arcades. My parents did the shopping. I could spend my allowance pumping quarters into that machine, and that's one of the favorite things we like to say is 350 built-in games, no quarters needed. You can save your couch cushions from raiding, and you're right. Having that nostalgia, having that ability to connect to something from our past and play these arcade classics, because you can't get them. And PS5 coming out, the new Xbox coming out, there's going to be some great titles, but sometimes you just want to feel that joystick and 2-3 buttons and jam away.
I'm kind of interested in, because you mentioned how many games you have.
Yeah.
It's a huge library, and some of these IPs, they've been passed around multiple times. Can you talk about how difficult it was to land the library and work with all these different publishers, and that may have changed since they shipped in the 80s?
So, we've got a great team behind us at AtGames, and they do so much good work in relationship building with all the top publishers. And actually, we just announced last week that we signed a strategic partnership with Taito in 2020. So we're going to see that some of their classics, like Space Invaders, hit some of our products. And it's a lot of tireless work. It's a lot of relationship building, and it's a lot of different negotiations, and just making sure that we're delivering the best products, so their products are and their titles are represented in the best light.
And when you work with the games and making sure that they still feel right, because the input lag that was in the arcade back then, how much work do you have to do with devs or internally to make sure that the Hadouken feels right, or like whatever that you're, whichever game that you're using, like it still feels true to the original?
I think part of that is just having the arcade quality controls built into the arcade. Having that, so you have that feel that you remember from the arcade, is such a big part of it. Two, our engineers and dev team they're excellent. And we have people that played the originals on our team that they're playing it, they're sampling it, they're testing it, and they're like, no, we want to update this. No, we want to change this to make it feel right. And our community feedback. We've got such an excellent community. They support us so much that they will give us the feedback that, no, this doesn't feel right, and then we can go back to the drawing board and make sure it does.
And when it comes to the actual controls, how much did you have to iterate on this? Because there's every kind of input device that you would imagine in an arcade you were able to fit on this board. So how long did that take to figure out and iterate upon like where everything was located and make it feel right?
It was a process of love. It took a lot of different versions, a lot of different changes. If you've seen previous versions of the machine, the spinners have moved. We've definitely machined them differently, and that's so important, that just make sure that texture and feel and the player has the best feeling, and that's where even the control panel height had to be at the right side, so that the younger generation can play, the older generation can play, people of various heights can play, and just have that right feeling. And I think that's the one best thing about the arcade in general, and this is just arcades, is that feeling.
Yeah.
The feeling of the joystick, the feeling of the buttons, the feeling of the spinner, the trackball, whatever it is, it feels right. Yeah. And I think that tactileness is very important.
And I think there's an element to your product and a lot of this kind of new wave of arcade cabinets that are made for the consumer that goes beyond just consumerism and nostalgia. There's also games history that's being preserved here, because a lot of those cabinets that existed in the arcades don't work anymore. They're breaking down. There's people who don't know how to fix them. And a lot of the IPs have kind of become defunct. So without products like yours, a lot of these games are going to go by the wayside. So there's an element of like game history preservation to your product, right?
For sure. And I mean, we have different titles on the arcade itself, like the artwork, and people walk up and be like, oh my God, you have Aladdin, oh, you have Star Wars, oh, you have Centipede, oh, you have this, oh, you have that. And it's like, I love this game growing up. I used to play this game. My dad used to play this game. I used to have this game on the Atari. And it's just having that memory and being like, this is part of history. Yeah. I mean, the video game industry is not something that's a flash in the pan. It's been around for so long now, and it's here to stay. But we have to remember the history, and sometimes those 2D classics, that they're better than some of the new stuff sometimes, and they're just, it brings us back to a simpler time.
They hold up, but at the same time, your product allows for you to play the newest game off of Steam with whatever input device you want, while at the same time going back and let's say, you know what, I'm gonna play arcade Tetris before I go to bed.
And that's the thing is, you're as let's say you have a small family and you want to play Tetris and introduce them to that, but then they want to play Fortnite. Our machine can do all of those things at once. Well, I mean, you can't play the games at once, but it has the capability to do all those things.
And, talking about like how accessible it is to people, one other thing that I think our community is going to really like is it's super moddable. Yeah. So you talk about the relationship that you have kind of as a grassroots with your community, where you maybe your community is doing things that you didn't even think was possible at first.
So a good example was someone from the community the other day shared a video of them actually streaming an NFL game on the monitor. Another one is one of the community members was able to play mobile games through Bluetooth onto the arcade. And there's just so many different ways that they show us how they can use the machines. And with our latest firmware update, we did introduce Bluetooth connectivity to a Raspberry Pi. So we're even more excited to see what the community has in store for us.
Did they continue to surprise you?
They do. Every day I'm scrolling the fan page to see what's new and exciting, and sometimes I have to take a second look and be like, I'm sorry, what did they do? For instance, someone added light guns to the arcade, and that's like, okay, we're not there yet, but they've figured out a way to do it.
Now, I'm not going to call them your competitors or even mention them by name, but there's other people in your space that frown upon modding. Can you talk about why you're so open to it and how that probably could lead to more sales for you?
I mean, we're just not opposed to limiting opportunity.
Yeah.
We want this to be endless possibilities and endless opportunities, and that's why we work so hard with our community to support them in their different ideas and different capabilities. And with our aggressive sort of firmware rollout, we want to make sure that we're listening to them and we're listening to the community. And I mean, they can email us, they can talk to us on social, and give us suggestions. And if they want to see something, we're going to try to add it and make it accessible to them.
So, how much does the cab cost? And because there's a connective nature, do you have to pay anything for these updates, or are those just kind of built into the cost of the product?
I mean, you have to pay for your Wi-Fi,
Okay. Yeah, sure.
your internet, but no, the cabinet costs $599, and again, all 350 built-in games are there. You can download the updates and do it either via Wi-Fi or you can do it via USB. And yeah, the firmware is there, and we want to keep supporting it, and you don't need to add any additional charges once you've purchased the arcade. Now, there are different things we might be offering in the future that are add-ons, but for now, the core features of the arcade machine are just the purchase price.
And then where can people get it?
Right now, they can get it from Sam's Club and Walmart.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.